Good afternoon and welcome to our Midday Mull for Saturday the 2nd of May. This morning I had to go off to the shops to get some bread and milk and a couple of the necessities, and everyone had some mask or face covering on. And I remember sort of in the past looking at pictures of people in China and Japan walking around like that and thinking that was insane, whereas that had become normal here. And it got me wondering, how long was that going to continue? When the lockdown eases, will people still go out like this? When I was in China, I discovered that a lot of people wore face masks. It wasn't so much to deal with disease, it was because it was just so cold. At minus 10 degrees, the air is bitterly cold, and if you have a mask on, it makes the air you breathe that little bit warmer. Daniel, my son, was in Hong Kong, and he said people wore masks there, but not in order to protect themselves, but they'd wear the masks when they were sick in order not to spread disease. And it got me wondering, as we move on, how our lives change, and will this become part of our changed reality, part of the new way we do things? And that prompted me to think about why we do things for people. And so often we think, oh, I've got to do this because it will make me a better person. I've got to behave in that way because that's what God would expect of me, and I need to do this to get closer to God. We need to keep the law so that we can be holy. That's not the case. I've been reading through the letter to the Hebrews, and in chapter 7, the writer is looking at Jesus as a high priest, talking about Jesus in the order of Melchizedek. Now, Melchizedek was a priest in the Old Testament who just suddenly appears in the pages of Genesis, and he blesses Abraham, and Abraham gives him a tenth of the plunder that he had from a battle. And the writer suggests this is because, or suggests that Melchizedek is greater than Abraham even. And we were promised a new priest in the order of Melchizedek. And so the writer is saying that the old priesthood didn't quite get it right, didn't fit the bill. There's something more was needed, and this is what we have in Christ. And reading from chapter 7 of Hebrews, verses 18 and 19, he says, "The former regulation is set aside because it was weak and useless, for the law made nothing perfect, and a better hope is introduced, by which we draw near to God." The law is there not to make us right. Glenn Nesbitt, a great friend and teacher, said to us that the law and the Ten Commandments aren't a ladder to get to heaven, they're a mirror that we can see ourselves. And that is what the writers here are saying. The law made nothing perfect, but what it did is show us what our needs are. And we have a better hope introduced in Christ. And so as Christians, as we follow Jesus, we will need to do what is loving, and we will need to look and say, how do we take the actions we've been doing now and carry them forward into a post-COVID world? And we're beginning to think of that as we move from a level 5 to a level 4 lockdown and things ease up slightly. How do we live in a way that is generous and protective of the people round about us? Not because it makes us better, but that shows that we are more like Jesus. So as you think of your life, where you are and the people you interact with and what happens in your life day by day, do the right thing, not to make you better, but because it makes you like Jesus, our hope and our eternity. Be blessed.